Hello and welcome to the Nursing Mother's Room. This is a space for moms who are here, but also somewhere else at the same time. The ones that are feeding their babies, folding laundry, wiping tears, and carrying stories that don't neatly fit into conversation all the time. Today's episode is tender. We have our friend Maria here, who is a mom of two and is taking the time to share her story with us while she is in a very, very different season than most moms would be in. So if you're listening from a quiet room, a car, or a stolen moment in the middle of the long day, just know this, that you are not alone. And we pray that you find peace today and find God in places that are unseen. So thank you for joining us. Kind of introduce a little bit. The funny thing is so you and I don't know each other too well, but I have known your husband and your in-laws and everybody since I was probably around like 8 or 9 years old, I think. And
Wow.
always been like really, really close family. Even your sister-in-law is still one of my like closest friends to this day. So
Aw.
it's wild to see kind of like where everybody is in their different seasons, and knowing knowing your husband and stuff too growing up. I've seen that there have been, the ups and downs and a lot of different things that he and his siblings have had to go through in their lives. I've been a part of that season from beforehand that maybe not a lot of people know about. And so now being able to be in this season and seeing you and seeing his family and seeing just how much things have grown, I am very, very excited and thankful that I get to be a part of it and catch a little glimpse of it between you and your kids and your story. Yeah, I want to know kind of your guys' story, how you guys fell in love and whole nine yards.
Well, um, it was in at church. That's where I Met him. He was my he was well, I was in the internship and he was on staff. Um, he was over facilities. And so that's pretty much how we met. We didn't get along at the beginning. But eventually as ended my internship and we just started to get to know each other. And so, I mean, that's pretty much the the overall story of how we met. Um, yeah, I mean, I fell in love with his character. I fell in love with his love for Jesus, with I didn't know him from his past. I wasn't going to that church since I was little, or you know, um, I was going to a different church. And I grew up, um, I don't know, I grew up Catholic. We weren't practicing Catholics all the time, but we would go to church on Sundays. I did my communion, my confirmation, and all that. But then went to a different church when I was 22 years old. That's when I got saved, and it was a Spanish Christian church, a small church. And then I eventually went to the Rock, and that's pretty much how I met him. And um, so yeah, I got to see a different side of Richard. I got to see him, a changed man walking in the ways of the Lord, his on fire for Jesus. And what I think what I loved the most about him was number one, his love for Jesus. He was so bold and just talking about God to anybody. Um, there was events where we would go out and um, evangelize, go on the streets to the homeless, and he was just always so bold and letting everybody know about Jesus. And so that's what I fell in love with, and his character and the way he would speak about God. I mean, you definitely could see the fruit in people, and it's not something many could fake. But but yeah, I would say that's the gist of
No, I love that.
how we
So what
met.
year did you guys end up getting married?
2020.
Okay. So right as COVID hit, everything, all
Hmm.
gotta
Yes, 2020. It was a small wedding, and it was nice. It was during the time where we weren't supposed to be gathering in big groups, but we did. We got married, and 2021 we moved out here to Michigan.
How
It
was
was
that?
very fast. Yeah, I mean, we were praying and we were talking about sizing down, trying to save money to build for our family, and his friend Josh had called him and asked him, "Hey, why don't you guys move out here?" And so we just took that as I'm like, "Is this God? Is this are we supposed to move out there?" And we took some time, prayed about it. We spoke to our leaders, and yeah, we just made the decision to go out there within 1 year of being married. It was fast for sure. Like I feel because we moved in with them, and so we were living with them for 1 whole year. And then after 1 whole year, we moved into our own apartment. And so um it was fun, but at the same time, there was also hardships going through all that, you know, um, finding community and
So do you think that
whatnot.
that's one of the biggest things? I'm kind of jumping all over the place just because I'm like loving hearing and piecing everything together. Because like I said, like I know him before, and so now seeing him like after, and again, like you said, he was on fire for the Lord and everything, and just even that, seeing how he, was a part of the church staff and everything was like such a
Hmm.
miracle and a blessing, just based on the trajectory of patterns of different things and stuff that he'd gone through. Seeing that and seeing him come on the other side and then being, a part of staff running facilities on fire for the Lord, then meeting you, getting married, and then moving to Michigan. It's like, like the perfect like story, perfect, scenario and stuff like that. And so it really was beautiful being on the outside, seeing all that, and but do you think that once you guys came out to Michigan, like trying to find community, that was like with hardships and obviously knowing with the situation that he's in now, would you say that there were signs of those things starting from that? Like, do you think like if he had more community or had, more stable friendships or people surrounding him, that things might have been a little bit different?
I think so. I think um I struggled with community at the beginning, but I'm very good at getting myself plugged in and meeting people. Um, and with Richard, I think community was a big thing for him. Like he couldn't find um a solid group of friends, I would say, um, that he could connect with. Uh, you know, and the signs, um, I don't know. I couldn't really see a signs because I didn't deal with him. Now if you ask me, I could definitely see. But but no, I mean, I ultimately trusted him, believed him. But I do think maybe like the community factor was one of the things that, you know, was hard on him. Um, 'Cause this is our first time just moving away from family. I think I feel like I could do it. I could do well with being away. Um, but with him, he struggled. And um, but yeah, I mean, I would say one of the early signs for me too is when he started neglecting his relationship with the Lord, not being as intimate, not reading his Bible, on a daily or often. And I think that is what brought concerns to me because I believe that when you neglect your relationship with the Lord, your spirit weakens and your flesh gets stronger, time after time. compromise after compromise, eventually, you know, it's your flesh and its passion. You're more vulnerable to the temptations of sin. And so that was one of the early signs for me when I was able to see as a wife, like, how are you doing with your personal relationship with the Lord? And I didn't know to the specifics of, he was having a problem or struggling with addiction, but because I didn't know the behaviors, I didn't know what to look for. Um, but it was a concern when I started to see his relationship with the Lord not be as how it used to. Um,
Yeah. Do you
and
with
yeah,
that,
I mean,
had you guys even talked about some of his past or kind of like where he came from? Like, had he shared any of that with you, or was all this like a surprise?
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about that before we were married, but his past was his past to me. I didn't think or would know that that would eventually rise up again. Like I said, the signs were for me was, if you're not, how is your relationship with the Lord? Because if you're not taking care of your relationship with God, things tend to come up, and it's usually a progression. It's not just from one day to the next. It's little by little, and eventually you're questioning yourself and you're asking yourself, where how did I get here? You know, but it started, way back when you start to let compromise in, and eventually you're at a place that you never thought you'd be in. And so I've known about his past, but even in his past, he said he would always struggle. But I think as teenagers, you think like, oh, you're just having fun. You don't really see that it is a problem or it's an addiction. He said that it's never something that it it has never been as strong as it was now, And the thing is, there's different seasons in life, and the more you tap into those sins, the stronger things get. It's a progression. It could get really ugly, you know? So things that you've never had to deal with in your past, now you're dealing with it. It's the same thing, addiction, but in a different season, it could look even worse, I would say. And so, yeah, we've talked about his past, but it was his past. You know, I married him for the person who I
Mm-hmm.
met and fell in love with.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. So when was the first time something popped up and you're like, oh, this could be a problem again or something like this is starting to creep back up?
Say that again. Like,
Like if there was a like time or moment, like if, was it I'm trying to be cautious with how I'm like phrasing it. If there was like a time where like you caught him with something or he came to you and was like, "Hey, I screwed up," or this or that, and then, was there a moment like that where on your end you're kind of like, "Okay, I need to keep an eye on this because this could potentially become a problem."
um, yes and no, I would say. Um, he was very good at hiding things, and ultimately I trusted him. So, um, I remember a moment where I kissed him and he tasted or smelled like a burnt tortilla. And I questioned him. I was like, why do you taste or smell like a burnt tortilla? And he was just like, hmm, I don't know, or whatnot. And eventually I found out that he was smoking, but at that time he told me it was cigarettes and it was actually marijuana. So things like that. But yeah, I ultimately trusted him. I trust what he says, and I didn't know the way he was or how he lied. Um But now, if you would ask me now, I know behaviors, I know what to look for because I know my husband now. And so I know, I'm pretty sure I would know if something was up. But at those
Yeah,
moments,
that makes
no, I didn't really know because I just gave that full on trust. But yeah, even at sorry.
I was just
Go
saying that
ahead.
makes
hmm
yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's like, you think that you know somebody and you're trusting them and you're like in covenant with them. So it's not like just a,
hmm
oh yeah, they told me this and then, this is what they actually think about this or, they said they like candy, but they actually like cake instead. You know what I mean? Like it's not just like a little start finding these things out as you're married to somebody and I think that it's so hard sometimes when you want to believe the person that's in front of you, but then it's hard when you start finding things out because it's like, did I even really know you? Type thing. And
hmm
yeah, so I don't know. I don't know. I admire you so much because I just can't in my head I feel just so hurt even being on or hearing things or whatever from different people or situations or whatever and being on the side of like, oh, that like sucks, like that like the betrayal when you start finding things out, and now being in
hmm
the situation that you're in, I commend you for, I've seen your content and everything of saying, I'm sticking it out with my husband, this is where we're at, but I
hmm
made a commitment to him, and having to do these things like by yourself and stuff too now, I think is beautiful. And moms were very resilient and strong. And I can't imagine having to go through like this season and having to raise two kids and stuff and being by yourself, you know what I
hmm
mean? While still being married, you
hmm
know what I mean? Like,
Yes,
what,
definitely. And
you
working through things and healing and all that. So it's a lot. But I'm trying to be obedient to what the Lord is asking me to do. And so I don't believe he's, you know, I'm supposed to divorce him, even though I do have technically the biblical right to. Um, but I ultimately want to do what the Lord wants me to do. And so if, you know, because I know he could restore, I know he renews, I know he transforms. We haven't been married a long time and everything started to pop up very early on. And so, yeah, I'm ultimately a fighter. I mean, I don't want to give up easily, and but I do know boundaries and I do know I wouldn't stay with somebody that is, abusive. So there's that too. Um, but yeah, I am just trying to be obedient to what the Lord is wanting me to do in this season and how he wants me to move forward with my husband.
That's the key right there is realizing that even though it may be a long season, it's still a season. And at some point, the season is going to end and things are going to change. And, I just even think of my own relationship and marriage. My husband today is not the man that I'm like, he's not even the same man that I met. And because the man that I met, we were kind of in the same boat of like, we were always like at odds and I'm very like feisty and stuff. And so if he were to like say something, I'm like, with you like and so we'd banter that, but we even had to have different conversations because one of the biggest things that he like did with his buddies and all that was they would joke and call each other names like dumb, stupid, idiot, whatever. And for me, I came from a verbally abusive relationship with my ex-boyfriend before that, and so for me, that kind of relationship or kind of talk was not even something that like I tolerated. Like I don't talk to you like that. I would appreciate you
Mhm.
not talking to me like that, And so even in
Right.
that, establish those boundaries even early on so that, our kids will see the examples of that as well, And so I'm like,
Mhm.
my kid running around calling somebody an idiot. I probably shouldn't be saying it so they hear me say that, And so I think of those things and I just you know, I've been praying for you guys. I've been praying for Richard, and I think that even during
Mhm.
this time, it's gonna be beautiful once the season ends, and you guys can look back
Mhm.
how the Lord has brought you, and
Right.
I'm a part of like different, mom Facebook groups and stuff like that, and one even with moms who are due like around the same time in March. And so many of them, it like breaks my heart. I've been seeing so many of them post about like their spouse is cheating or different things, and they're like,
Mhm.
and everybody in the comments, like the first thing is like, get divorced, leave him, do all this stuff, blah blah blah,
Mhm.
whatever. And I agree. The first signs of like physical abuse like that, like I would not tolerate it at all. Like that is
Mhm.
something that like that's a hard line for me, But I think, and again, it's not even a thing of like excusing the things that have happened, stuff that's happened in your marriage and stuff like that, um but it's a thing, there's the difference when you're trying to just stick it out and figure it out, and there's a difference between the Lord asking you to walk through this. And
Mhm.
so I
Mhm.
think with that being the difference is that this is not just something that you're trying to do on your own strength. You're not trying to just save your marriage by yourself. This is the Lord calling you to
Mhm.
do it because I believe that
Right.
He's getting you guys out of it. And then I believe on top of that, that your story is going to then be impactful for other people. It's
Mhm.
probably,
Mhm.
it's one of those things to where like this is not just for you guys. This is going to be for people in the future and even your kids. The example of you two staying together through hard times and stuff like that. That's what marriage is, and sickness and in health and all these things. And,
Mhm.
even when my husband and I were getting married, it was this thing of like, a lot of people try to focus on like, oh, do we have good chemistry? Do we like the same things? And it's like, if you have a child that gets sick and is in the hospital, you need to have somebody who's going to be able to be there praying with you, fighting for your child.
Mhm.
You need to
Mhm.
who's going to be able to help pick you up when you're going through things or when you're sick
Right.
and so I just I really commend you for where you're at, and I think that you know I'm praying for grace and strength in this season because I know that it's not easy, and I think that um just with where you are and how things have been and the way that you talk about your husband and your situation, I think is beautiful because a lot of people would just,
Mhm.
be able to badmouth or talk trash or
Mhm.
whatever. And,
Mhm.
if you're not doing that, then nobody else has the has the right to, or to judge the situation, you know. But
Mhm.
so I think I would where was I going with that? Um so kind of from where he was living with you and you guys were in your situation, um, in your marriage trying to figure things out, to him he went to Boston. I'm
Mhm.
assuming with Uncle Damon.
Mhm.
So where was the
Yes.
conversation that were you thinking that like, oh, he's gonna go for a little bit, he's gonna, you know, I don't know. Like
Um, like the timeline of
yeah, kind of like, what was the goal in a sense of him going to hang out with Damon in Boston?
um to recover, to seek recovery at a
Yeah.
distance because things were getting ugly with us. It wasn't good if emotionally. It was very hard, very ugly. And so it was there was like this drawing point where I'm like, okay, we cannot live with each other. Um, and he needs to go seek recovery,
Hmm.
or else I'm gonna separate myself, not divorce, but separate myself because it was not a healthy state. He was progressing with his addiction. It was getting worse and worse and worse. And so he went, his uncle called him to move out there with him. I agreed. Um, and the goal was for him to recover, be going to AA meetings and all that. And in 1 year, we could reconcile, come back together. But he ended up relapsing. I would say, though, this was his first time realizing he needed help. There was moments throughout the years like, oh, but he was always in denial. And so this was like a turning point for him, like he needed help. Went out there. He ended up relapsing. So he was sober for 4 months or 3 months around there. and he ended up relapsing for 2 months. He hid it. He was good at hiding it, so he hid it for two months, and yeah, went back down. And I asked him to move back over here because he was. That's when he, committed adultery and all that, and I felt like I he was losing focus on the family, um, and wanted him to do it from wanted him to seek recovery over here with his family. He also missed his children. Like Richard loves his family. He loves his children so, so much. And so that was really hard for him being out over there as well, just not being able to see his children and being around them. And ultimately addiction just steals a lot from you. You know, it's it's a thief for sure. And yeah, I asked him to come back over here, and within 1 week he he got incarcerated. He ended up trying a different, stronger drug because his drug of choice is marijuana, which led to alcohol. Um, and then he ended up trying a stronger drug that um, led, led him to being incarcerated. And so it was just very short lived while he was over here. And so that's kind of like the timeline of why he went to Boston to seek recovery. And this is when had my son as well. I mean, I went through all that in a sense alone without a spouse, but I had good community out here. Like the Lord set me up very good. Like I even had a friend that it wasn't planned, but she was there with me through the whole pregnancy. Was She had just given birth to a week before. Eva, come here. Sorry, let me get her. Come here, come here. But yeah, she had just given uh birth a week before me, and she was there with me, massaging me. But so I was definitely taken care of. I definitely felt the Lord's love and kindness through it all, and me being here on my own. Um, but but yeah, I mean that was the goal, for him to go and recover, you know, um, and which led him
So
to being
now,
incarcerated.
now have you guys, and you don't have to give details or anything, but is there now kind of like a timeline of how long he's going to be away for?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Still nothing. It's been 5 months,
Mm,
and um, well, I do have like an idea. It's I think the first proposal was like 4 years.
okay. So now,
And so, but
you,
it has not been no
yeah.
decision.
So now with that, kind of having to prepare mentally, like how has that been? Like these last like 5 months. One, now you're still away from family in Michigan. You're now trying to process these things. Again, like you said, you were having to try to find work. You're trying to figure things out with
Hmm.
vehicles, childcare, and all this stuff. And still being a mom, still showing up for your kids, still trying to be, a wife, still focusing on, bettering yourself with the Lord and healing, like you said. Like
Hmm.
how kind of has this like process been? Because I think for anybody, like this is a lot to deal with, and like even just seeing you and seeing your content, like I just see so much of, again, I believe, as believers and stuff, I see a lot of the Lord on you. I see a lot of the Lord, having grace with you and,
Mm,
giving you this strength, but just
yeah,
kind of, how has it been for you?
I mean it has been tough. I'm not, not to sugarcoat it. It's tough. Without the Lord's help, I don't know where I would be, but it has been tough. Mentally, I would say just having to figure out all the things financially. Mom already has a lot to think about, a lot of hats they wear, a lot of hats moms wear. But to have to add like full on financial responsibility has been tough. And not having your spouse there to even give you a break in a sense, go shower while they take care of the kids or whatnot. That's my friend. um, but yeah, it has been very tough. Uh, go watch TV. But yeah, it's having to figure out the food and applying for things, paperwork, fixing. Yeah, it felt like a never-ending process with having to figure things out, having to figure out what I'm gonna do with work, and it's been mentally draining, I would say. Um, Having to figure things out and having that mom guilt too because sometimes I'm right here sitting on the couch with my phone researching things, applying to things, phone calls, and neglecting in a sense my her emotional needs. And she would come and ask me, oh, come dance with me or stand up and play with me. And sometimes I'm just like, oh, you know um not right now, baby. So of course, like, as moms, we always guilt ourselves for things, but it's not like we're always going to be there playing with them 24/7. But I think in this season, it just has increased more of that mom guilt because I'm doing things, trying to figure out things, and I'm over here telling her not right now, or but but yeah, I'm have been trying to take care of them and doing what I need to do to be able to um keep us afloat. And um so mentally it has been draining, but physically I feel like the Lord has been strengthening me when it comes to the energy. I'm surprised. I would think I would be more tired, more exhausted because I do wake up multiple times throughout the night, but surprisingly in the mornings I'm just ready to go. And not that the Lord's not helping me with it mentally, it's just that it's it's more on my part. I need to continually um give full on, you know, surrender to God and full on trust, and because of the stress and the anxieties or the fear of the future just comes more on me mentally. And so with that, you know, again, when I'm like stressing, I have to give it to the Lord. Okay, trusting God that He is the one that's gonna provide for me. He's the one that's taking care of me, and all of that. And so yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And so now with um I had seen that you're going to be moving back to California. That's I think it's going to be a beautiful time for you guys, and I think being closer to family and being able to have, more of a support system, I think is going to be good for you guys instead of being, more
Yes.
isolated and everything. So I'm praying that, just even being in the California sun is going to be refreshing for you guys.
Yes, definitely. I do feel like it's the best move. Not that the Lord, you know, didn't help me, because He did. It's just the the more that I weighed like the pros and cons of everything, having family to help me out, because ultimately we're not made to parent alone. We're not made to be, you know, doing everything or carrying the weight alone. We were That's why we have a partnership with our spouse, because we're both supposed to be the ones parenting and helping each other out. And so I mean, yeah, being with family, it's gonna help me, and even to just be a better mom as well, not being short or frustrated. I feel for the single moms. Like, I could understand now, you know maybe why the reasons why they they yell more, or they're short, or the reasons why they're more um lenient, accepting and not really disciplining. I could see both sides because I definitely started to see that in me as well. And I'm like, Lord, help me. Because again, we're not made to do things by ourselves. It's a lot, it's frustrating. And without the Lord's help, I'd be everywhere with my emotions. But thankfully, like the Lord has been grounding me, she's giving me the strength.
People posting about stuff, and I'm like, I want to go hang out with everybody. Also like people that I grew up with too. We were
Oh.
for over 20 years. And just seeing like people that I grew up with now with like their babies and just the different seasons
Mhm.
that just they're at, like it's so beautiful. And then, with us being over in like I'm thankful for where we are. This is where the Lord has called my family to be. And thankfully, like my parents live next door, my sister lives down the street, like everybody is super, super close. And so I'm thankful that we have, good support system with my family specifically, but then also our church community too. And so I just know how important that is. Like, I genuinely would not make it without having my parents so close by. Like, even the other day, I was trying to give my son a smoothie and usually give him this, like, little, little glass cup and everything. And it slipped out of his hands and it slipped and it broke all over the floor. And I was exhausted. It was almost time for him to go to bed. So I had just given him, a little treat and stuff like that. And it was like the last straw for me. And so I went to get him. I'm like freaking out because I like that's the one thing I absolutely hate is like glass, like broken glass, like anywhere. And every time that I think that I've like swept it up, cleaned it up or whatever, I end up walking and I end up with a piece of glass on my foot still. So I like absolutely hate it. And so I'm literally like crying and my husband was at work and I called my mom and I was like, "Mom, can you like just come over and help me? Like, can you just help me clear up this glass and stuff? Like, I just can't do it." And already being, 8 months pregnant, I was literally like at my wits' ends with stuff. And I wasn't mad at my son. I know it was an accident and everything, but I just was like so exhausted. I'm like, this is the last thing that I need. And then with him, it's like if I try to clean it up with him around, he's not gonna let me do anything. So I I grabbed him, went to put him to bed, and I asked my mom, and she came over, and they were actually having a dinner party. They had friends over, and she just like rushed over. She rushed over with her mop and her broom and everything, and just was like helping me clean up. And I'm sitting there just like crying, and I'm like, I'm so sorry to like interrupt you. And she's like, no, that's like what we're here for. Like if you need something, like let us know. And I think for me, I have always been such an independent person, and so having to even ask for help or relying on people or even relying on like my husband is like a really big deal for me. And so I'm very much even in the season now with like my son running around, having a new baby, like I really need help and I need to be able to ask for it. And I think that that's such a beautiful thing and it's going to be beneficial and your kids are going to be better for it. And again, being able to be closer to family I think too is going to be great for them. And I think growing up again in the community of rock moms now and stuff too I think is going to be amazing for you guys. And it's crazy to think of too that like obviously would have loved for things to be different with Richard, but now seeing that those situations and those things that have happened are now leading you guys into this new season and stuff too. You know what I mean? Like I think that the Lord obviously purposes every situation, for our good. And so being able to see you guys walking into this new season and you and your kids, I think during this time, like, you know, whenever we have things that we feel like we're lacking, the Lord always comes in and brings in those things that we need or those people or those situations.
For Richard, the Lord has been faithful, with even with him being incarcerated, we believe he believes that the Lord literally saved him, because when he got arrested, he was, I don't know, he was in the hospital. I think his muscles were deteriorating or something, but sad to say, we think definitely the Lord intervened, and right now he's better. He's at a place where he's at a, what would I say, a better place. How does he explain it? He's at the best he has been in a while in his relationship with the Lord. Even him being in Boston, he was not 100%. Like his relationship with the Lord was not at best. And right now he can't run away. He has to sit there. Does have a group of guys in there, but his relationship with God is great. Um, the Lord speaks to him so intimately, and so when you would, if you tell someone who doesn't know the Lord, they'll be like, "Oh, that's a lot of coincidences." But it's not. It's the Lord speaking to him. It's so much. It's so specific, and we talk about God. He reads his Bible every single day. He's reading his AA book, and so Lord, sorry, I get teary, but he's faithful, and I am so um, thankful, that the Lord is transforming his heart and changing him. He's the only one that can. He's the only one that could do that. He's the one that changes hearts, that restores, that renews. And so he is doing that right now in the midst of him being incarcerated. So even with him, it's it's good, you know. And so and with us, the season of me going home, that's gonna be great as well. There's gonna be difficulties within that too, but ultimately it's good. I mean, I'll be able to build financially and have stability.
Who knows if he, would have just continued on had he not been in this situation and stuff. And again, like this is not something we wish for anybody, but I do see that, like as you're saying, that he even sees that and recognizes that like this is the Lord saving him in this season. And I think it's amazing. Yeah, I kind of wanted to just have you kind of expand on that a little bit. What is something that in this season give a piece of advice to a mom who may be in a similar situation, or going through a time of singleness while being a mom? Like what is something that you would want her to get from like your content in your story?
That through it all, the Lord is the one that will get you through everything, through the ups and downs. Um, being in that similar season. Um, I mean, yeah, I've seen the hand of the Lord many times through me going, yeah, with me going through what I'm going through. Friends, community. I've seen His hand within my community. I have great community out here. Um, my friends are amazing, and it's not the same as a mom, the help, the support that I need, you know, but they are amazing. I have friends that call me weekly and pray with me and, you know, also speak life within my marriage. They're not, telling me to divorce or whatnot. You know, their words are very, you know, what what God says, and I appreciate each and every single one of them. But yeah, I guess I would say to the single mom that's going through the same, that to hold on to the Lord, to seek Him out. He's the one that will hold you. He's the one that will sustain you um through it all. And also that it is not their fault. It's not their fault. What their husbands are going through. They are not responsible for the actions of their husbands. Um, and I would say to give yourself grace. Uh, at the end of the day, it's not going to be you and your husband standing before the Lord. It's going to be you by yourself giving an account for your own life. And so I know many women, many wives, who deal with this certain kind of things with having a husband that's an addict. They blame themselves, or they're kind of thinking of what could I have done better, or what didn't I do. And so, but yeah, ultimately it's not your fault. you know we can't control our husbands and their actions, um and I believe that in every season you still have purpose, you still have um you still have purpose, you still have a mission, and as long as you're being obedient to what the Lord is asking you in that season, and that's all that really matters. You can have joy in, a season that feels, I don't know, hopeless in a sense. There is hope. And so that is what I would say.
Oh, I love it. I
These
love it.
kiddos.
I love seeing them. It's so funny. It's like I see so much of you and I see so much of Richard in them too. Like it's so like wild to see, you know? They're so beautiful. Well, I just want to thank you for sharing your story with us. I'm praying for other moms who are listening to this that, again, that you're not alone. Whatever season that you're going through, I'm praying that, if you are able to find church community or, people in general, that, you have people that are there to uplift you and to connect with and to make you feel like you're not alone. Because, as Maria said, no mom is supposed to be alone. We're not supposed to be alone in this journey. And so, my prayers for those listening that you don't feel alone, that you get plugged in and you get connected to people that are going to be there for you and your family. And yeah, so Maria, thank you so much for joining us. And cannot wait to see what the Lord does in this next season. And, praying to have you on again sometime. We'll see you in the California
Yeah.
and
The update.
be amazing. And we're continuing to pray for you guys and to pray for Richard. And, we love you guys and your family and the extended family and everybody. And, I'm just very grateful that you were able to hop on here and share with us your story. So thank you everybody for watching. We will see you next time here in the Nursing Mothers Room.